Good morning, everybody. It's August the 29th, the last Thursday of the month, only 2 days away before rosters expand, and we saw some injuries come down the pike last night, and so we've had some call-ups already, and there may be yet another one in Tinseltown. You never know. Good morning, everybody. This is Arnie on Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports. A quick look at the standings shows in the American League. My favorite, the New York Yankees, 88-47, the best record in Major League Baseball, tied with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Remember, if they tie for the best record, the Yankees just won 2 out of 3 at Chavez Ravine in Los Angeles over the weekend, which means the Yankees would have the best record and home field advantage throughout all of the playoffs. They've won 4 in a row. They have 11.5 game lead over Tampa Bay in the division. And they won last night in Seattle, hitting 4 home runs in Seattle. Wow, what a road trip it's been. And how about Ford? Have you driven one lately? Well, he has driven a few out of the park. He hit 2 out yesterday, Mike Ford. 8 home runs on the year. It just seems like when the Yankees lose somebody like Luke Voit to injury, they pull up a Ford, and he's Ford tough. I'm telling you. Yeah, I know. I'm using a lot of TV commercial adage this morning, but hey, get used to it. And to the Yankees off today, play Oakland at home starting tomorrow, so they return home off that West Coast trip. Looking at the best record in the American League by a half a game. Yeah, only a half a game. It's a good thing they won 4 in a row because Houston, well, they lead the West by 10 games now, and they're 87-47. They've won 9 out of 10 and 6 in a row. Beat Tampa yesterday 8-6, and they play again today. Now, when you look at that Houston game from yesterday, home runs, scoring runs, it just seems like Houston, they are a resilient bunch. Correa on the IL, the beat just goes on. It doesn't seem to affect them as a team. Now, I'm sure they'd love to have him back sooner than later. And they look like what I'm reading this morning, preparing for the show, is that he will be back probably in about a week and a half. So for us fantasy playoff guys, keep your eye on that one. Last night, Springer went 1 for 4, Bregman 3 for 4. His average is up to 290. Yuli Gurriel hit his 27th homer. Alvarez 1 for 3. He's hitting 329. Bregman now has 91 RBIs on the year. Gurriel 95. It's a different hero every night, but the one thing that's consistent, Garrett Cole, the free agent to be, 14 strikeouts in 6 2/3 innings last night. Did not get the win. The Astros scored late. Will Harris gets the win. He's 4-1. But the Astros beat the Rays, and I tell you, that's complicating that wild card race in the American League for Tampa. They could well be the team out when the season is over. Sogard and Meadows at the top of their order last night, a combined 0 for 8. Yeah, you heard it, 0 for 8 between those two. So Tampa 11.5 out. In the Central, Minnesota, they continue to hold on to the 3.5 game lead. They win against the White Sox yesterday, 8-2. And as we look at White Sox, I wonder if the White Sox may bring up Luis Robert over the weekend. Boy, fantasy players, hold your finger on the button. There's no injury there that would promote that to happen, but why not? Here's the thing, though, and I want to talk about this in just a few minutes. Minnesota, they just continue to score runs. Mitch Garver at the top of the order, 3 for 4 last night. Polanco went 2 for 5. There's a player down at the end of the bottom of the order we're going to talk about in a few minutes who's on a hot streak, and you know when this player gets hot, you got to add him in fantasy, and he may be on some waiver wires. Hold that thought. I'll be back with that in a moment. Jake Odorizzi, 14-6 after the win last night. He goes 6 innings, strikes out 8. Cleveland continues to roll. They've won 4 in a row and 7 of 10. They play in Chicago again today. And the West, again, I said Houston, they lead the division by 10 games. Oakland, losers last night to Kansas City, 6-4. Not only did Oakland lose the game, Matt Chapman, the third baseman, 30 home runs, Gold Glove, hit in the head, removed from the game. The question is now, will he be on concussion protocol or not? We'll have to keep an eye out for that one. The A's made a corresponding move, however, as Chapman went down last night. Let me find my notes real quick. I thought I had that one ready, but apparently I don't have it ready, but I have it here somewhere. I can tell you all about it in just a moment. So Chapman was hit in the head from a pitch by Jacob Junis. I don't know about him. Now, they have called up Sheldon Noose. And actually, they called up Sheldon Noose before Chapman was hit in the head. Now, who is Sheldon Noose? Well, he came over in the trade, the Doolittle trade. Okay? When the Nationals acquired Sean Doolittle, they sent over Jesus Luzardo, who I have talked about, the rookie pitcher, coming up really soon to a show near you. And they also got Sheldon Noose. Well, what's he done this year? He's the A's number 8 prospect. He was hitting .317 with a .550 slugging percentage, 27 home runs, 102 RBIs in 126 games for AAA Las Vegas. He's 24 years old. He was called up already before Chapman got hurt. So it just seems like him being a third baseman, he will take Chapman's place should Chapman be out for any period of time. Now, fantasy owners, if you can handcuff, if you want to call it that. We do that in football a lot. But if you're going to handcuff a player, no report out yet on how long we might be without Chapman. It may just be a day-to-day thing. But Noose may be a good call to call up, put on your team in the event that he's out for any extended period of time. So just a little nugget there as we continue to roll. Looking at the wild card standings, Cleveland, a game and a half. Again, they win at Detroit yesterday, 4-2. And the interesting thing about Cleveland, if you look at, since Ramirez goes out with a hamate bone injury, here's some more nugget for you. You gotta love this stuff. He goes out, the first game he's out, Franmil Reyes is hitting in the 5th spot, which is the spot occupied in the order by Jose Ramirez. Okay? He hits 2 home runs. The last 2 games, Jason Kipnis has filled that spot, the 5 hole. So yesterday, Kipnis goes 2 for 4. He hits 2 home runs. He now has 16 on the year. My point being, now those guys may have hit those home runs in another spot in the order, but they didn't. They hit them in the 5 hole. And the Cleveland Indians have gotten great production out of the 5 hole since the departure of Jose Ramirez. Now, reading this morning, the Cleveland Plain Dealer, it sounds like he's going to be out 5 to 7 weeks, which means if Cleveland can make it into the second round of the playoffs, then it looks like Ramirez may well be back to help them with their cause. In the meantime, Kipnis hitting like a champ last night, 2 for 4, and pitching. How about the Savali kid? 7 innings, 6 hits, 2 earned runs, no walks, 5 strikeouts. It's the first home run he's given up in 7 starts, and his ERA on the season sits at an impressive 1.96. He's on my fantasy team. I won the league. I'm in the playoffs with a bye. Savali, you're part of that, and I thank you very much. So that's our look. Cleveland, the game and a half lead. Second in the wild card is Oakland, and Tampa now trails in the 3rd slot by 1 game. Now, I told you yesterday and told you today, they all 3 play today. Cleveland at Detroit today, Oakland at Kansas City today, and Tampa at Houston. Those are some tough games for Oakland. And this is still a division, a wild card race where 3 teams are within 2.5 games. It can go either way. I'm interested. What about you? I'm into it. Yeah. So let's take a look at the National League, where we've got Atlanta still leading the East, winners of 8 of 10. They're playing today at home against the White Sox. They're 81-54. So they've played 135 games, meaning they have 27 to go with a 5.5 game lead over the Washington Nationals, who are at home against Miami. Yesterday, Scherzer pitched against the Orioles, only pitched into the 5th inning, struck out 8. Scherzer's going to be fine, it looks like, which means Washington, I don't know about you, but of all the teams in the National League, I don't want to play a wild card game against Washington, and I'm not so sure I want to go into a mini-series, a 5-game set, in the National League Division Series when they've got Scherzer, Strasburg, and Patrick Corbin coming at me un deux trois. Are you kidding me? But that's the way it looks in the East. The Central, the Cardinals still lead the Cubs by 2 games. Today, St. Louis is home against Cincinnati after a day off yesterday. The Cubs beat the Mets last night 10-7. Wow. 6 runs in the first inning for Chicago. Nick Castellanos continuing to hit. He got a hit and drove in 2. Chris Bryant went 2 for 5. Kyle Schwarber. Now, here's my take. Kyle Schwarber could well be the key to that offense. If Kyle Schwarber can continue to hit like he did last night, now he won't do that every game, but he went 2 for 4. He drove in 3. Hit his 31st home run last night, folks. Castellanos' 20th, and Ian Happ came around. Ian Happ hit only 230, but he hit his 5th home run last night in the first inning off Syndergaard. The Cubs homered in the first off Syndergaard, Happ. They homered in the second inning off Syndergaard, Schwarber, and they homered in the third inning off Syndergaard, Castellanos. The Cubs were scoring early and often, and it's a good thing they did because Kyle Hendricks did not have his typical Kyle Hendricks kind of day. 4 2/3 innings, 8 hits allowed, 6 earned runs, 2 home runs allowed. Ugh. But look at Syndergaard's line. If you think that was ugly, this is uglier. Close your eyes. It's that bad. 3 innings, 9 hits, 10 runs allowed, and 9 of them were earned. He gave up those 3 home runs. For the Mets, off the injured list, McNeil goes 3 for 5 at the top of that order. J.D. Davis, 2 for 5. Michael Conforto, 2 for 4. So the 1 through 3 yesterday, a combined 7 for 14. And when your 1 through 3 hits 500, you should score runs. And they did. They just couldn't stop the opponent. Syndergaard, one of the worst outings of the year. The Cubs rack him yesterday. Now again, that's huge, not just because the Cubs won. It's huge for another reason. The Cubs are 44-22 at home. Not bad. 667 baseball is always a good thing. But they are 27-39 on the road. And among the teams fighting for playoff berths, wild card or otherwise in the National League, the Cubs have the worst road record. And the game yesterday against the Mets was in Flushing, New York, home of the New York Metropolitans. Way to go, Cubbies. Win on the road. Got to do more of that. They win 10-7 yesterday. Milwaukee wins as well against St. Louis, tightening that grip, if you will. And Moustakas didn't play. We'll talk about when we might see him again in just a few minutes. But it was a big win for the Brewers, beating the Cardinals. Keston Hiura homered. He went 2 for 4. He's hitting .304 on the year. That was his 16th home run. It was off Flaherty in the 4th inning. Jordan Lyles, great pickup by Milwaukee. Went 5 1/3, 1 earned run, struck out 9 Cardinals. Guerra got the 17th hold of the year. And Josh Hader turning it around. Got his 26th save, 2 innings pitched, 3 strikeouts. Brewers win, and really a game I hate to say it, but it's almost a gotta-win kind of game. The Brewers have played 133 games. The Cardinals have played 132. What that means is 29 games left for Milwaukee, 30 games left for St. Louis. The Brewers are 5.5 games out. They really need to sweep in Chicago now that they finished that win with St. Louis. So the game today, tomorrow. The game tomorrow, they start a series tomorrow, Milwaukee at Chicago. That's a game that the Brewers need to win. Now, the Cubs play today in New York, and St. Louis is off today. They play tomorrow at home against the Reds. The Dodgers, as I've said, ho-hum, a 20-game lead in the division. But they had a little bit of bad luck last night, and I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. They did play San Diego last night. The Dodgers did win in 10 innings. Hernandez scores the game go-ahead run, really. They're on the road, so it wasn't a walk-off, but on an error in the 10th inning. But the Dodgers continue to find ways to win. Pollock went 1 for 6. Muncey was removed from the game. So what happened to Mac Muncey last night? Well, he was hit on the wrist by a 94-mile-per-hour fastball, taken out of the game. And he's the Dodgers' second baseman. And there's been a lot of talk lately about this heralded rookie, Gavin Lux, hitting over 400 at AAA, tearing the cover off the baseball, athletic, can steal bases. And many think, including this podcaster, that Gavin Lux would add a special spark to the Dodger offense they don't have, but there was no spot for him unless of an injury. I don't know how serious that Muncey's injury is, but let's assume for a moment the worst. And if the worst happened, do the Dodgers call up Gavin Lux and let him play? I think they do. I added him in fantasy just as a speculative ad. We'll see how it goes. But I can see it happening. I can see it happening if Muncey's out, Gavin Lux filling that void and filling it quite well. Wild card, Nationals pulling away a little bit, a 3-game lead in that first wild card over the Cubs. And the Cubs, a 2-game lead over Philadelphia for the second wild card, a 3.5-game lead over Milwaukee, and a 4-game lead over the New York Metropolitans. I didn't talk about the Phillies, but I will for just a moment. The Phillies last night, they broke out the whipping sticks on the Pirates. It's almost like now the Pirates own the Reds, and from what I've seen lately, the Phillies are owning the Pirates. 12 runs, they win 12-3. Realmuto, is there a hotter hitter at the catcher position than JT Realmuto right now? The answer is no. No. He's the hottest catcher in Major League Baseball. Went 3 for 5 last night. Harper went 2 for 4. Fatherhood suits him well. Hoskins 2 for 4. Segura 2 for 4. Hernandez 3 for 5. Kingery 2 for 5. Hazley 2 for 5. You get the idea. Dickerson homered his 9th. Realmuto homered his 20th. Velasquez pitching for Philadelphia went 5. He was effective. 2 earned runs, no walks, 5 strikeouts. And what about Mitch Keller, the rookie pitcher who had just come off a great start for the Pirates? Well, his great starts ended last night. He did strike out 8 batters in 4 innings. So if you're needing strikeout ratios, he gives it to you. But if ERA, wins and losses matter, in the 4 innings he pitched, he surrendered 11 hits and gave up 8 earned runs. Ooh. That hurts. The Phillies win. The Phillies, interesting, 2 games out of that final wild card, play the Mets tomorrow. Off today. That should be quite a weekend series as the Mets are 4 games out of the wild card. The Phillies 2. You're almost getting to the time of year where teams like that need to sweep a series, because you have to jump over so many teams, and splitting series is winning 2 out of 3 just doesn't usually make you jump in the standings. So we'll keep our eye on it. So those are the standings this morning. I want to talk about some injuries for just a few minutes. We'll start with the Angels and the best player in baseball, arguably Mike Trout. Trout out of the lineup for precautionary reasons against the Rangers on Wednesday. He's had a minor injury to the bottom of his right foot. Angels are off today. Angel brass hopeful that 2 days of rest will help with the foot. He's fully expected to be back on Friday in the lineup for the series opener against the visiting Boston Red Sox at Angel Stadium. Now, there's also Tommy La Stella, and you know Tommy La Stella was having a career year, hitting over 300, injured on my birthday, July 2nd. That's right. And for those of you who didn't send a card or present, I take gift cards, you know. La Stella been on the 60-day injured list since then with a fractured right tibia, scheduled to take batting practice on Friday. He's also been jogging on a treadmill. I don't know if he's coming back this year or not, guys. I just don't know. But if he does, with the multiple infield position eligibility, he'd be a great pickup at the last minute. Carlos Carrasco. Is this not a great story? I mean, this is what baseball is all about. The Indians planning to activate Carlos Carrasco from the 60-day injury list on Sunday. He's 32. You know he's been out of baseball since May when he was diagnosed with leukemia. Now, he's made 3 rehab performances so far with AA Akron and AAA Columbus, allowing only 1 run, striking out 6 across 3 2/3 innings. He will likely join the bullpen as he continues to build endurance in his arm. I'm not sure what they're going to do with him long term, but the rich, pitching rich tribe just get pitching rich richer. Congratulations, kudos to Carlos Carrasco. What a comeback. Coming back from leukemia in May to pitch at the major league level in September, on September 1st. What a blessing. What a blessing. For the Brewers, Mike Moustakas and Adrian Hauser. Moustakas remained unable to play or swing on Wednesday because of a swollen left wrist. Questionable for the start of the series with the Cubs on Friday. It is not broken. It is not broken. He was struck on the exposed part of his glove hand by a ground ball at 107 miles per hour off the bat of Harrison Bader. I watched it. He played Olay with that ball. And you know Mike Moustakas is as tough as nails. And for him to Olay a baseball, that thing was stung. It was off Gio Gonzalez. He was lobbing cantaloupe up to home plate. Bader slaughtered the pitch, hit right off the short hop off the wrist in Monday's loss. X-rays came back negative. There's no broken bones. It's just sore. He will be playing, if not this weekend, by the 1st of next week. And that's important because of fantasy playoffs. Hauser, the pitcher, he thinks he'll make his next start. He left after 5 innings against the Cardinals in Tuesday's no decision because of a left hip pain. He's penciled to pitch again Monday against the Astros. I don't know if you wanted to pitch for you in fantasy on Monday anyway, but that's just an update. David Price and Andrew Benintendi. The Red Sox will get reinforcement from the injured list because Price is coming back Sunday. He hasn't pitched since August 4th due to a cyst on his left wrist. Benintendi not in the starting lineup for the 3rd straight game Wednesday. Injury to his left side. He is poised to come off the bench or possibly start in his next game for Boston against the swinging A's, all right? Luis Severino, Jordan Montgomery, Gio Urshela for the Yankees. I mean, come on, the Yankees just stay hurt, right? Severino and Montgomery, they will both join AAA Scranton Wilkes-Barre this weekend. Montgomery scheduled to make his 2nd minor league rehab start on Friday against Buffalo. Severino will make his 1st minor league rehab start on Sunday. Notice I said he will start on Sunday, and I've been saying on this podcast for days, when Severino's arm strength is back up to snuff, he's going to be in that rotation. Bet your bottom dollar on it. Now, Urshela, removed for precautionary reasons, they say, Wednesday after experiencing tightness in his left groin. That just hurts thinking about it. You know, the word groin just coming out of your mouth sounds like that could hurt, right? Especially for me. While running out a 2nd inning infield hit, he was injured, came out of the game in the 5th inning. Boone is hopeful, Yankee manager Aaron Boone, that the injury will be minor. Urshela said after the game at a post-game interview he expected to be available to play on Friday when the Yankees open a series with the A's in New York. Boone said he didn't know if Urshela would have an MRI or not. They always have MRIs. Are you kidding me? I mean, why not? The Yankees are paying for it. Talked about Max Muncey's injury earlier. I think Gavin Lux is someone to keep your eye on. At any moment, if I saw the Dodgers had called him up, I would not be shocked. Rizzo and Wilson Contreras for the Cubs. And these are star players I'm talking about this morning. This is fantasy playoff time. This is take out your pencil and paper and write it down stuff. Rizzo, not optimistic. He'll be able to return to Chicago's lineup before Friday at the earliest. His back again. Contreras did more running and agility drills on Wednesday. Caught John Lester's bullpen session. John Madden said he's close. If he's on waivers in your fantasy league, count on him playing next week sometime for the Cubs. And remember, I told you. Sean Doolittle and Ronis Elias for Washington. They both completed simulated games on Wednesday afternoon at Nationals Park. That should be their final hurdle, and they should both return this weekend to the Nats. That'll help that bullpen. Doolittle needs some time off. I wonder if that's what it was all about. He just needed some time off. He was tired. Zimmerman, scheduled to play in a minor league game at Double-A Harrisburg on Wednesday. There's a day off Thursday. He could join the Nats this weekend as well. And if that happens, Hendricks, playing time, all but eliminated. Matt Adams, the other Nationals first baseman, out of the lineup Wednesday against the Orioles. He had some kind of knee issue, hit on Tuesday with a pitch. He did enter the game late as a pinch hitter. He's going to be fine. What about all these injuries? Brad Peacock placed back on the 10-day injury list on Wednesday with right shoulder discomfort, sharp pain during his shoulder in a 1-inning and 2/3 outing against the Rays. He's going to go for an MRI. Jesse Winker for the Reds left the team to get more treatment. He's going to be out for a while. Definitely nothing before September 1. So says manager Bell for Cincinnati. David Bell saying that yesterday. Francisco Cervelli, who provided a spark for the Braves over the weekend, added from Pittsburgh when they put him on waivers. He was taken out of last night's game in the second inning, going from first to third on a double. Left quad cramp. Finally, some good news on the injured list. Danny Duffy. Royals manager Ned Yost said they will activate Duffy, who was on the IL with a left hamstring strain, on Sunday instead of Saturday. That way they won't have to make any roster moves because Sunday rosters expand. And speaking of that, Sunday going into next week, most lineups, teams can add players on Sunday. Watch for Luis Robert. Watch for Gavin Lux. Watch for Kyle Tucker. Watch for Jesus Luzardo. Watch for Sean Manaea. These are all guys, 5 of them, that I think are coming up Sunday and could be fantasy relevant going forward. I talked about a Twins player earlier. I want to talk about him now some more. He's 4 for his last 11 with 5 runs scored, and all 4 of those hits have been home runs and 7 RBIs, and his name is Jonathan Scope. Now with 21 homers on the year, and you know he's not been playing full time, but he has started the last 3 games. And you also know Jonathan Scope's history of being one of the hottest hitters in baseball when he's on a streak of heat. And now he is. He's had 4 straight years with at least 20 homers. He had lost playing time to Luis Arias. But Rocco Baldelli's going to have a hard time not writing that name down. You spell it this way, Schoop, Rocco. And you write it down today and every day as long as he's hitting like this for the Minnesota Twins. How do you like that? Scope has a 257 average, 56 runs, 53 RBIs. You got to add him if he's out there. How about Aristides Aquino? Now, I heard Lenny talking about him at 9 o'clock. Stayed red hot. He went 2 for 4, a double, a homer, 2 runs scored. He has a 315 average, 4 doubles, 13 homers, 29 RBIs, 2 steals, and only 88 at bats. The home run he hit Wednesday tied Cody Bellinger's record for the most rookie home runs in a month in National League history. That's 13. And if Aquino's not added in your fantasy leagues, then you need your head examined as well as everyone else. Here's a player. You got to look ahead at the schedule. And if you have, on Monday, September 2nd, which begins probably a playoff week, we have only 12 games, which means it's not a full slate, which means you've got to have your lineup set if you're in a daily league, and you've got to have hitters at every position now that it's playoff time, right? The Braves are playing the Blue Jays on Monday. I'm helping you out here with your fantasy lineups for next week, guys, so listen to me good. The Braves on Monday playing Toronto in Atlanta, and they're facing Wilmer Font, a right-hander. They're facing Jacob Wakas-Pesek, I think that's how you pronounce it, a right-hander on Tuesday. 2 games against the Blue Jays, who don't pitch well, left-handed pitchers, which means Matt Joyce, lightly owned, if at all, in fantasy leagues, will be playing and starting for the Braves. And in his last 3 games, 6 for 11 with a homer. He doesn't play against lefties, but he hits the heck out of the ball against right-handers. And if you're looking at your roster and you got some holes coming up on Monday of next week, go ahead now and add Matt Joyce. Stop listening to me. Go do it right now. He's going to hit at home. The Chop House, are you kidding me, in Atlanta against Toronto? And you're telling me you haven't added him on your fantasy team and you've got holes for Monday? Drop a reliever. Go add the guy. It's playoff time, folks. How about some other players playing on Monday that you can get off the waiver wire? How about Jock Peterson for the Dodgers facing a right-handed pitcher on Monday, and Peterson has 27 home runs. I've already talked about Scope. Sin-Soo Choo playing at Yankee Stadium against right-hander Tanaka. Now, I know Tanaka's been pretty good lately, but Choo hits him pretty good too. Pollock Monday facing a left-hander projected. He's hitting .360 against lefties, is A.J. Pollock. Didi Gregorius, left-handed bat, facing a right-hander in Texas. And I talked about Mike Ford earlier. You may not have driven him or ridden him lately, but you might want to ride him on Monday. Now, the problem there, they're saying Luke Voit may come up this weekend. And if Luke Voit comes up, that's going to cut into Ford's drive time. I want to do a little bit here talking about hot hitters. I do this. I'm going to close the show this way today. J.D. Martinez, this is over their last 7 games. J.D. Martinez, 11 for his last 26. Aaron Judge, 13 for his last 30 with 5 homers. We know all that. They're owned. Alex Bregman, he's owned. 13 for his last 25, a 5.20 average. Let's talk about some players who are owned in 25% or less in leagues that you can add that might help your team. Okay, so here we go. Kevin Newman for Pittsburgh, 11 for his last 29, hitting .379. I've talked about Mark Canha all week. 10 for his last 24, 4 home runs. John Berti for Miami, 9 for his last 30. That's a .300 average. Jorge Alfaro, 10 for his last 17 at the catcher position. That's .588, folks. I've already talked about Jonathan Scope. I've already talked about Mike Ford. Corey Dickerson, 9 for his last 27, 2 homers. Kiki Hernandez, 8 for his last 19, .421, and he plays first base, second base, shortstop, and outfield. Surely you can find a place for Kiki. Christian Walker, Phil Chapman's least favorite player in Major League Baseball, 9 for his last 18. That's 500. Harrison Bader, 8 for his last 25, 320 average. Jack Cave, 5 for his last 13, that's 385. Kyle Seager for Seattle, 7 for his last 20, 350 average. Colin Moran, 8 for 24, that's a 333 clip. These are players that may be on your waiver wire, guys, who are hot right now. And if they're not, I bet Dawel Ligo is for Detroit, 8 for his last 22, a 364 average. Can you pronounce that 3 times? Dawel Lugo. Tommy Edman for St. Louis, hitting 333, 10 for his last 30. Adam Frazier, 7 for his last 23, 304. Neil Walker, 9 for his 27. First base, second base, third base eligible. Are you kidding me? These are just some players that you want to take a look at who are probably on some waiver wires. If you have, now you're not going to add these players to cut a great pitcher or a great hitter, but if you've got somebody weak, hurt, like I cut Lourdes Gurriel because I'm getting into playoffs. I can't carry 5 people on my injured list. It's not the regular season anymore. You lose, you're out. There's no update on Lourdes Gurriel that says he's coming back next week. I got to have players on Monday and Thursday in my league. Sogard's going to play. They're facing the Orioles and a right-hander on Monday. I dropped Lourdes Gurriel. I picked up Sogard. I've got a player who can give me some stats. I got an advance. And that's what you got to look at as you get into the playoffs. Look at your roster. You may have a great player who's on the injured list and isn't playing. I'm stuck. I had a choice. I could keep Carlos Carrasco or Gurriel. So I cut Gurriel. Move on. Add on. And win. That's what it's about on Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports. Teaching you how to win in your fantasy league. Hey, I don't know if you heard Chappie and I on Tuesday night. We did some NFL football. And guys, I'm going to tell you, I've been part of some, I think, good shows. Good information. But the football chat Chappie and I had Tuesday night about wide receivers was as good as any show we've done. And go back on demand and take a listen. Speaking of which, looking at our schedule tonight, Money One is twice as nice with Cam at 5:30. Chappie's Fantasy Chat at 7. That's gotta hear stuff. And Fantasy Fisticuffs Football at 11 tonight. So you get your dose of fantasy football on the number 1 fantasy network, Lenny Melnick Fantasy Sports. Lenny, Andrea, great job with the network. Great job with the podcasters. I think the network's as good as it's been, if not better. Kevin Hastings, great job, my friend. Phil Chaplin, keep it going, buddy. And guys, here's our schedule in the major leagues for today. Are you ready? Because it all starts at 1:10 p.m. when Mike Clevenger and the Indians invade Comerica Park in Detroit and Daniel Norris. 1:10 p.m. At 1:15 at Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City, Bassett for Oakland, Sparkman for Kansas City. At 2:10, the Rays and Kittredge at Minute Maid Park in Houston against Zach Greinke. Another 2:10 game. The Twins, Jose Berrios, who has not pitched well lately at all. Jose Berrios goes to guaranteed rate field in Chicago to take on the White Sox and rookie Dylan Cease. Night games, Reds, Alex Wood at Marlins Park against Duggar. Cubs at 7:10, Citi Field in Flushing, John Lester and Jake DeGrom. At 8:05, Globe Life Park in Arlington, Felix the King Hernandez for Seattle, taking on WAR number 1 rated pitcher this year. Did you hear me? Lance Lynn and the Texas Rangers. You heard me. The Pirates, Coors Field, Williams for the Pirates, Gonzalez for Colorado. Runs shall be amassed tonight at Coors Field. Padres at the Giants, Chris Paddock at Oracle Park in San Francisco. Against Pudge's son, Mr. Rodriguez. Finally, the Dodgers and Diamondbacks, Chase Field in Phoenix. A big game for Ryu and the Dodgers. Not pitched well his last two outings. He's 12-4 on the season with an ERA sitting flat at 2. Taking on Kelly and the Diamondbacks, 9-13, a 4.86 ERA. That's our schedule for today. Thank you for being with me. Love you guys. Have a great Thursday. This is Arnie from Arnie's Fantasy World of Sports.